Hello everyone, welcome to the UFC 320 Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira Poatan prediction podcast, and I'm getting this out on a Friday, which is later than I like. Number one, because I see the views, and Thursday tends to be a gold mine for me. So it's just I'm currently in school on Thursdays, and it's obviously a little bit of a problem in that regard because it's taking up time that would normally be used to do the recording of the podcast. I maybe need to just get it on and do it on Wednesdays, get it out a little bit earlier, etc. Because the closer you get to this thing, the less people are looking for. Actually, I don't know. The less historically my numbers have said, the less people that get into getting their betting advice. Now that the personal reason for me is I like to get these out like well before the weigh-ins. You know, Thursday was a good place for that because Friday's the weigh-ins. That way I don't have that second thought like itis where like I'm seeing things getting closer to the weigh-ins, people struggling to get to weigh, people looking bad at the pod or at the pressers or doing dumb stuff. Although I guess like now that the press conferences are kind of being stretched out a lot longer, I don't really have that option anymore. I'd have to release the video and the podcast on Mondays to get away from that. But anyways, we're back at the T-Mobile Arena, and let's just quickly hit you up with the usual disclaimer here. I'm going to be talking about fight betting. I'm going to be talking about my fight betting. I'm going to be breaking down these fights in a way that you could possibly use this information to place bets. However, I have a very, very strong stance on this matter. Do not bet what you cannot afford to lose, because this is MMA and it is chaotic and not a path to financial freedom. If your salary is like $50K a year, do not be betting $40K on fights. Do not do that. Do not touch that. Every time I see someone putting on Twitter like some kind of big like rant and scree about them losing like 5 figures on a fight, I just go, so you're an idiot. That's all. Like people, particularly on the Jared Gordon Rafa Garcia fight, because that's my new one. Because people were so mad that Jared Gordon fought with an injured leg. So mad that he fought after getting hit with a car. And there's problems with that. Don't get me wrong. That's a far from ideal scenario. But that's the scenario you're in. That's the kind of stuff that does happen in the UFC. I don't want to say frequently, but like periodically. So keep that in mind. Keep the betting small. Keep the betting fun. Let's get into this one. The card is pretty good. The only real problem I have with this card is that I think you need to do better with the main card opener. Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov is, I don't know, it feels a little bit flat. Maybe it's just because I'm very, very anti-Pyfer right now. Maybe it has to do with the fact that he's making police brutality jokes about his nickname. Maybe that's the case, but I don't know. That feels a little bit flat, and there's also a lack of a feature prelim here. There could be, to be clear, because you do have Farid Basharat versus Chris Gutierrez, and even Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Muniz to a certain degree could fill that role, but we're going with the Etiva Gauthier Tristan Vines fight, which, don't get me wrong, Gauthier is very exciting, but Vines is a late notice replacement. He's not very good, and the guy he's replacing is Ozzy Diaz, who is also not very good. So, if I may be blunt, probably didn't need that. as the feature prelim. Anyways, let's get to the top of the card here. I'm not a huge fan of either of these title fights. The reason for Ankalaev versus Poatan is that it's a rematch 7 months ago, and I don't think anything has fundamentally changed. My general thought in MMA is that fighters do not change in that short of a period of time. They require more time to seek out the appropriate support for the changes that they are going to make and going to improve, unless it was something that they were already kind of improving and it was like a focal point of their training. And what happened in the Ankalaev versus Poatan fight, one, it's not that. Mostly because, like, let's be honest here, Ankalaev is a pretty unique fighter in the division. UFC and MMA as a global thing here, very, very little about the UFC's rankings, does not apply globally, is a bunch of very flawed fighters who happen to be like hyper athletic, and that's what masks the fact that they are not very good at things. And as a result, Poatan has been working on improving to deal with that type of fighter. The Jiří Procházkas of the world, the Carlos Ulbergs of the world, the Jamal Hills of the world, the Khalil Rountrees of the world, the Dominic Reyes of the world to a certain degree, Johnny Walkers, Alexander Rakic's. This applies to like everyone. I just listed off like the entire top 10. And Ankalaev is not the only exception to that. I guess you could argue like Jan Blachowicz is a somewhat complete fighter, and sadly, Volkan Oezdemir might be the third most. So that means that there's a lot of specialized training and approaches that you need to apply when you're facing someone like Magomed Ankalaev, who is a very solid wrestler who happens to prefer to kickbox and is actually really defensively sound and solid. He's not overwhelmingly physical. He's not a bad athlete, to be clear. I don't think you can get anywhere in this division, anywhere near the title, while being a bad athlete. But when it comes down to a division that has like a Jiří Procházka, who we're going to talk about in a bit, or even a Khalil Rountree, who we're going to talk about in a bit, or Jamal Hill, or even a Dominic Reyes, or Carlos Ulberg, who has blindingly fast hands. There's nothing like that with Ankalaev. It's just very, very solid. It's a durable chin, responsible defense, a guy who can wrestle and probably should wrestle more, but can wrestle if he must. The Jan Blachowicz fight was a good example of that. Got his legs compromised heavily and somehow won the championship rounds on wrestling. And very, very sharp, nuanced striking, which has like really good counters and does not leave a lot of openings for someone like Poatan, who is a nuclear power hitter, to actually land the shots. And at the end of the day, while I have my problems with Ankalaev, for example, the UFC is really unhappy to have him as a champion because, number one, Kadyrov. The connections to dictators is something that they are not adverse to, but something that they do not particularly enjoy. They would really prefer not to have fighters with that kind of connection. But on top of that, it's the fact that his fights are not necessarily barn burners, which is an oddity for the 205 division. And two, that he doesn't really do much to promote himself, which is not surprising. Outside of Khabib, none of the guys from that part of the world really have. Is kind of the, it's a cultural thing. And the UFC is allergic to actually doing what you would call their actual job. It's funny, like they want someone who does the job of Conor McGregor and gets everyone excited for them, but does not have any of the leverage of Conor McGregor, and therefore they get to pay them peanuts. And they want to be lazy and not pay for it. It's an interesting deal. Anyways, I'm going with Ankalaev. Yes, there were things in the first fight that Poatan could build on. Specifically, the low kick game was there early. He went away from it. That was really kind of it. Like not a lot went right with the hands. And if he could redirect the flow of the fight and put Ankalaev on the back foot instead of letting him pressure, there's a lot of opportunities there as well, because Ankalaev, despite the fact that he is not your traditional pressure fighter, because the pressure is not leading or unlocking his offense necessarily, but what it does is it allows all of his defense to kind of function that much better. And obviously, it's just something that makes him more confident, more comfortable. And if Pereira could take that away, as well as kicking the legs, a la Jan Blachowicz, there is a absolute way to win this fight. It's just, I don't trust Pereira as he gets older to make that kind of adjustment. And it's not like I'm saying anything that wasn't obvious to me anyways, heading into the first fight, that the key to beating Ankalaev was to put him on the back foot, reverse the pressure flow, reverse the directionality of the fight, and low kick. We went over this last week with Jake Matthews not low kicking Neil Magny. It's just, it's not something that UFC fighters are known for, actually finding the actual really good game plan. Now, Pereira is a low kicker by trade, so hopefully that's a thing. But I am going to go with Ankalaev. I'd be stoked for Poatan to win. It's a more exciting version of the division for fans, because honestly, real talk here, aside from the puncher's chance, which is always going to be there, I don't really even know how the rest of this division beats Ankalaev, frankly. It's like, like Carlos Ulberg's probably next up for a title shot if Ankalaev wins this fight. And I'm like, it's not that I can't imagine Ankalaev losing to Ulberg. I can picture it in my head. I can see what happens. But in terms of like a concrete game plan that can win minute to minute and keep the force up, I don't know. And I certainly would not necessarily pick Jiří Procházka. Although again, Jiří Procházka has the chance to nuke anyone on the planet, and we're gonna get to him in a bit. And then, betting odds wise, I didn't even touch on the betting odds. We have Ankalaev, the favorite, at minus 180 to minus 275. That's a wide range. And plus 150 to plus 215 for Alex Poatan Pereira. Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen. I am going to glaze Sandhagen off the jump here because the rest of my breakdown of this fight is going to be very dismissive of him, and I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. I like Corey Sandhagen. I'm a massive fan. I wanted to see him get a title shot at various points in his career in the UFC. I think it should have already happened by now. He is a creative, violent striker who also tends to have actual game plans to utilize wrestling when appropriate, to utilize grappling when appropriate, to utilize pace when appropriate. He very, very, very seldom looks lost. Now, there have been fights where he has been basically just, body bagged. I'm looking at the Aljamain Sterling fight as a classic example of that, where he could not do anything because he got submitted in a minute and a half. But everything else, it's like he gave Petr Yan a good fight. He gave Umar Nurmagomedov a good fight, even though he didn't really have a lot of moments that were leading towards victory there. He gave TJ Dillashaw, and probably beat TJ Dillashaw, frankly. That's what it comes down to. And otherwise, he's beaten a lot of very, very good fighters. Mario Bautista, Rafael Assunção, John Lineker, Frankie Edgar, admittedly the ghost of Frankie Edgar and Marlon Moraes, Yadong Song, Marlon Vera. That Rob Font fight was stunning. And of course, recently beating Davidson Figueiredo, albeit by injury, but an injury that he very much worked to cause. So fantastic fighter, phenomenal fighter. Really enjoy him. Really loving it. I have to pick Merab. The reason for this is that Corey Sandhagen's ability to handle a strong offensive wrestling game have historically been a bit of a weakness, honestly. The only real exception to this, if you look at his UFC run, is basically back at the Mario Bautista fight that we were talking about earlier, where he ended up armbarring. So he ended up on the ground anyways. But by the same metric, Bautista doesn't really approach the game the same thing. Like, he got taken down by John Lineker. That's not good. He got taken down by Rafael Assunção. That's not good. He got taken down by Marlon Moraes, who is not a wrestler. The aforementioned absolute backpacking by Aljamain Sterling. Got taken down by TJ Dillashaw, the ghost of TJ Dillashaw. Got taken down by Yadong Song. Got taken down by Rob Font, although that was a wrestling match he had that more or less dominated. And then Umar Nurmagomedov, Davidson Figueiredo. It's been there for anybody who has wanted to get him down. And he scrambles very, very well. He makes it very hard. He doesn't get locked down easily, but he is up against Merab, the god of the scramble, the god of energy, the god of repeated wrestling chains and takedowns and just never giving up. A dog with a bone that really, really wants that bone. And as a result, you've got to pick Merab. Is there a way to win? Absolutely. Merab is getting better as a striker. He's utilizing feints better. He's blending his wrestling and his striking way better together. There's tempo changes. There's less predictability to his game. But I think he's still very, very hittable. I mean, it's the same thing I said with O'Malley. Can O'Malley knock out Merab? Yeah. Can Sandhagen do it? Yeah. But it's not that likely because outside of melting the ghosts of Marlon Moraes and Frankie Edgar, it doesn't usually happen that way. It's a more attritive rather than dynamic offensive striking threat. So there's not really any way to pick Sandhagen here. And the betting odds obviously suggest that. Minus 400 to minus 440 on Merab, plus 300 to plus 340 on Sandhagen. Merab is a bigger favorite than fellow champion Magomed Ankalaev, who is fighting a guy that he actually beat 7 months ago. That should probably tell you all you need to know. So, Jiří Procházka versus Khalil Rountree. I'm going to say that every pick I have with a Procházka fight sounds very, very similar. Can Jiří Procházka get knocked out? Yeah, he is allergic to defense. He's trying to put out videos where he's like, hey guys, I'm trying to learn defense. And it's day one boxing stuff. It's not. What I'm getting at is it's not going to happen. This guy is going to be defensively porous for his entire career, for however long it is before CTE / other injuries catch up with him. That being said, he is a marvelous athlete, very explosive, very creative, very powerful, very fast, sees things very well. It's the only reason he doesn't get knocked out like every single fight. And he's going to bring chaos to Khalil Rountree. I don't honestly think that Khalil Rountree deals with that very well at all. Rountree is the more technical, more textbook sound fighter. He looks like the guy who literally learned from the textbook how to fight. His form is very good. His decisions are very well supported in a structure of what is supposed to happen in a fight. It's why he can beat a guy like Jamal Hill, because he just says, Jamal, despite the fact that you are a monster, you don't know how to technically fight. I do, and I'm basically just going to pants you in a way that, like, Jiří Procházka would not. And he's going to have his chances. He's going to be dangerous. But, like, my major issue with Rountree is that he is not a confident, assured fighter. If you look at any of his fights that go particularly long, there comes points in the fight where he's like trying to reread the textbook. There's no, I don't want to say no, but there is a lack, at least in terms of top fighter, natural confidence and natural flow as a fighter. He has to have that moment where he kind of goes back to the drawing board and rereads the drawing board. It's kind of like, hey, coach, what do we do? What do we do? I can't improv. I can't adapt. Not that I can't adapt. I can't improv. That's the one. I cannot snap of fingers, like, change up what I'm doing. And Procházka just doesn't let you reflect on the game plan. You're gonna be like, wait, I need a second here. Nope, still coming for you. And I think that bodes poorly for him. Now, again, Procházka's wide open to getting absolutely nuked. Rountree has power. It's on the table. It would not surprise me. But I do not think Rountree can corral the chaos. So, unless he gets that knockout, he is going to lose. And I also have to, like, point out that, like, if you look at Rowntree's career, it's a lot of wins over guys who cannot physically compete with him. With the exception of Jamal Hill, but, like, it's Old Man Anthony Smith, Chris Daukaus, Justin Jacoby, Carl Roberson, Modestas Bukowskis, Eric Anders, who can physically compete but is a weight class below, the Ghost of Gokhan Saki, Paul Craig, and Daniel Jolly. And these are all people who are just well below him on the scale. Like, you know, this is a guy who did lose to Tyson Pedro, although he did knock him down. He did lose to Michael Oleksiejczuk before Oleksiejczuk tested positive for, I don't remember what. Oleksiejczuk tested positive. There's a PED failure in there. And it's a no contest now. But, you know, lost that fight. Lost to Johnny Walker. Lost to Ion Kudalaba. Lost to Marcin Prachnio. These are all fairly long ago. Because, like, in the last 4 years, his only loss is to Alex Pereira, which is great. But it has to be said that the guys who were beating him are not the guys he's beating. Like, he's not gone back to that level outside of Prachnio. I would hope I would take him to win that fight in a rematch, but who knows? Anyways, does he have a chance? Absolutely. Everyone does against Jiří Procházka, but everyone else has the chance of absolutely getting pants by Jiří Procházka, and that's just how that goes. Procházka's minus 195 to minus 225. Rountree is plus 158 to plus 175. Youssef Zalal versus Josh Emmett. This was going to be my hot spicy take fight. And then I looked at the odds and was like, wow, Emmett is a plus 350 to plus 380 underdog, and it's minus 480 to minus 500 on Zalal. I don't know why. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I thought that the end of the Calvin Kattar fight would maybe, like, dull people's hype on Zalal, and losing to Lerone Murphy is looking like increasingly not actually a problem for Josh Emmett. I don't know. I was hoping to make some money off this fight, but apparently everyone is onto it with me, and yeah. The issue with Josh Emmett, it's going to be similar to, like, a Jiří Procházka fight where, like, it doesn't matter about the opponent so much as just him. Josh Emmett is a very good mid-range fighter. He has power in the pocket. He has wrestling, if need be. He has That is his range. That is a problem regardless of who you are almost. The problem is that regardless of who you are, the outside range is not his friend. Part of it is the fact that he's 5'6", but another bigger part of it is that he doesn't have a range game or really any kind of solid footwork. And that is a problem. That is not something that is going to work out terribly well for him. Zalal has an outside range game. He has footwork. He has speed. He has the ability to touch people up from the outside and get the job done. Now, will he finish Josh Emmett? Probably not. Josh Emmett is a mythical creature of toughness, unless your name is Jeremy Stevens for some bizarre reason. But like, this guy took a lot of beating at the hands of Laurel Murphy. He did survive. Ilya Topuria, he did survive. Yair Rodriguez, he got triangle choked. I don't suspect that that's really something that's on the table for somebody like Youssef Zalal. Maybe it is, I don't know, but probably not. I think it goes a distance, but yeah, I am with the betting public here. I actually I think I'm less with the betting public, because I don't think minus 480 to minus 500 is appropriate. I think it's actually too big of a favorite there on Zalal, and the underdog is coming back the other way at plus 350 to plus 380. But I am going to pick him to win. Then there's Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov, which a couple of years ago would be a fight I would just like snap my fingers and go, hey, Joe Pyfer's going to win this fight, because Pyfer was on the rise. He was this powerful, fluid striker, also very explosive takedown guy, and it seemed like he was going to be a monster for a significant portion of time. And then he lost to Jack Hermanson. And it's not that he lost to Jack Hermanson. It's the fact that Jack Hermanson loss, I think, has left him kind of questioning things that he wasn't questioning before, as far as like cardio and what he should be doing pace-wise. It's just not the same fighter. And granted, we've only seen 2 fights since then, one of which was not indicative of this, the Marc-Andre Barria fight. But the Gastelum fight was moments of that Joe Pyfer and then moments of not that Joe Pyfer. And then on top of that, you have Abus Magomedov, who is a guy who I wrote off basically when he arrived in the UFC. He was coming in from the PFL, where, like, realistically, his big weapon was being bigger. Like, I guess he's technically coming in from KSW, but, like, he had a PFL stint. And the basic deal was that he kind of needed to be bigger than people to actually really have fundamental success repetitively. He didn't have the cardio, he didn't have the pace, he didn't have the way of handling himself. And then he knocked out Dustin Stolfus in 19 seconds. People went nuts, blah, and then he got Sean Strickland in a main event. His next fight, which made a lot of sense. And then he lost to Kyle Bahayo. And he's put together a decent little run here. He's beaten Warley Alves, Bruno Ferreira, and Michel Pereira. 2 of those by decision, surprisingly enough. He's showing better wrestling and better cardio energy management. I think he has more energy, and I think he's also just wasting less of it. And he's kind of becoming pretty reasonable. Like, he's got the size to be a good middleweight. He's got a decently well-rounded skill set, which for middleweight is already ahead of the game. I mean, this is a division that is the broken toy division for some reason. And as a result, this is actually a fairly interesting test for Pyfer. Now, am I going to take Pyfer to win? Yeah, I'm going to take him by decision. A stoppage is on the table. He hits really, really hard. He also could get a dominant position on the ground and pound away. But it's just interesting how the waves of fortune are shifting. And again, part of it is probably that I really don't like Joe Pyfer as a person. There's a lot of mental excuses. There was the whole like crap hole Mexico thing when he originally was booked with Gastelum and he got altitude sick. It's like, you got sick, dude. Like, it has. I don't want to say it has nothing to do with Mexico, because it does. It has to do with the altitude. But like, the same thing would happen in parts of America that have a similar altitude. I don't know. It just seems like he's very, very, very unaware of like the things that are around his career. And it doesn't make me feel great to see him getting cheered for saying my nickname is now going to be Body Cam Off. But I am going to pick him by decision. I am going to pick him to get the job done here. He's minus 240 to minus 265, plus 190 to plus 210 on Abus Magomedov. If this is the only fight I'm wrong on, that'd be great. I don't have much to say about Atiba Gauthier versus Tristan Vines, which is the feature prelim here. And realistically, all you need to do is look at the betting line. Minus 1408 to minus 1800 on Gauthier. Plus 700 to plus 950, on Vines. And Gauthier is a monster. He is a 6'4" athletic freak at middleweight. I have a boatload of concerns about his skill depth. Like, how is the grappling? How is the cardio? How is the defense at a UFC level? How is the wrestling defense? How does he handle people who are not just blown out of the water against him right away? But Vines doesn't really test any of these things. Vines is a guy who is an okay athlete and tends to out-athlete people who are worse athletes than him. He should get mauled by Gauthier. It's a late notice fight, so I can't really be too harsh on it, but I do have to say that the Ozzy Diaz fight didn't really offer much more than this. So it's not like the late notice is the entire reason. But you know what? Slow playing Gauthier is fine. He is clearly very, very promising, but clearly has a lot of question marks. So I am fine with this. Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Muniz. These are two guys I really just don't feel like I can trust because Shabazian is a front runner. He has been. I know people have been trying to suggest that he's kind of fixed a lot of the things about his game that like has led to him being a front runner because like he won a decision against AJ Dobson and he won a decision against Andre Petroski. But I think really those are just guys that don't really do the things that he tended to fail against, honestly. They don't extend fights in a way that's meaningful outside of just being tough. And even Petroski's not that tough. And then, knocking out Dylan Budka in a minute 35 is meaningless. Budka is not good. I legitimately am very confused how Budka ever got signed off of Contender Series. His fight on Contender Series against Chad Hannacum was like quite bad and was more an indictment of the fact that Hannacum was just not good and Budka was also not good. And then he somehow got signed and lost 3 straight fights. So what are we going to do here? But anyways, Shabazian still had that loss to Gerald Meerschaert, which looked a lot like his standard loss. And it could happen here because Andre Muniz is a really, really talented submission grappler. It's just unfortunate that Muniz does not have much of a game otherwise. He is physically fragile. He's been getting knocked out quite a bit. And he can be out-wrestled. He absolutely can be outstruck. And I'm going to pick Shabazian by TKO. But, like, if this fight goes deep, I would not be surprised to see Shabazian fall apart and get subbed by Muniz. Like, it's on the table. It's just, I don't really trust it. Muniz is just the right kind of don't trust to just get absolutely splattered. That's my opinion. So, Shabazian is the favorite, minus 290 to minus 333, plus 225 to plus 260 on Muniz. Then we move over to Farid Basharat versus Chris Gutierrez, which is probably going to be a way more interesting fight than the breakdown here is going to be, because the pick is Basharat. The pick is Basharat pretty confidently. Gutierrez is a neutralizer who has very, very good low kicks, but when he can't neutralize you fairly easily, i.e. you don't have a range game and you don't have a way to close the gap, or when you do, I should say, he tends to lose. Like, there's not a lot of good results for Gutierrez against people who have basically the tools to defeat his neutralizing style. It's guys like Yadong Song, Pedro Munoz, even Ronnie Barcelos, who have beaten him. And then you look at the guys he's beaten, and it's like the best win of the bunch. And people will say it's the Frankie Edgar knockout, but, like, let's be real, it's not. It's probably like John Castaneda. And it doesn't feel like the type of fight that Basharat loses. Basharat is pretty good all around. Like it's a solid endorsement. He can move forward. He can compete at range. He can wrestle. And all of these things are things that Gutierrez really kind of struggles with. Like, he's still tough, but, like, he mentally breaks, starts doing silly stuff like trying to Imanari roll for some reason in the Yadong Song fight. So yeah, I've got Basharat here pretty confidently to pick up the W. And he is a prohibitive favorite at minus 500, minus 835. Now, it should be mentioned, Bet Rivers bet line is the minus 835. Everyone else is down like 500, 600. So Bet Rivers is just, they're just being weird on this one. Plus 350 to plus 540 on Gutierrez. Daniel Santos versus Ju Sang Yu. I am not terribly confident on either of these guys, and I think I'm just taking the underdog for the underdog factor. Honestly, I'm going for the spicy take. Santos is a physically very impressive fighter. He is fast. He is got cardio. He is durable. He is tough. He is actually fairly good at everything he does, like in terms of well-roundedness. He can wrestle, he can strike, etc. It's very clear what the UFC sees in him, but he is also a chaotic mess who doesn't follow a game plan in any real shape or form, and that means that the physical gap he needs to actually win fights is quite large, because he needs somebody who he can just like, he needs somebody that it does not matter that he doesn't know what he's doing. He needs somebody who it's like, hang on, I need to do something right now. Something stupid, and it works. So that could be Ju Sang Yu. That could be. Ju Sang Yu is a guy who has made a similar career out of overpowering people, but he does hit really, really hard. He wrestles fairly well, and as much as knocking out Chekasaragi doesn't mean anything, I just don't have that faith in Santos. Also, Santos was a bantamweight for most of his success, and he's fighting at featherweight now because he's having weight cut issues, which is another example of like probably not having the best preparation possible, because he's not that big. He's 5'7", 67-inch reach. Like it's not like there aren't dudes who are routinely making bantamweight that are bigger. So yeah, I'm going with Sang by decision. He hits hard. He wrestles well. He generally has a game plan, and that's kind of what I'm going at. But I think it's really just that Ju Sang Yu is plus 125 to plus 140 and minus 157 to minus 170 on Daniel Santos. I can't pick Santos at favorite odds against anybody who I think has any kind of athletic ability. Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos. I am going with the hot pick here because Santos is, at least according to Tapology, a 9% underdog. Go figure. She's only plus 150 to plus 163, which feels applicable, and minus 185 to minus 200 on Chasen. Not much of a breakdown here. It's just that Chasen is not really a functional striker. She needs to clinch. She needs to overpower people there. She needs to out-scramble people there. And I don't really think that that's ever really worked against Santos. It's just kind of what it comes down to. Like, there are obviously people who have taken her down. There are obviously people who have clinched her and found success there to a certain degree. Holly Holm, paging Holly Holm. But it's never been the key. Like, Carol Hossa had to work really, really hard to get a win and be a functional striker against Santos. Something that Chasen just isn't. And then you have the fight with Irene Aldana, which, again required a big knockdown and a finish. And then you have Aspen Ladd, who had to finish her. And then you had Cyborg, obviously, who had to finish her. And otherwise, it's like people who have tried to do this that are comparable are people like Lena Landsberg, who Santos overpowered in the clinch. Chelsea Chandler, who Santos overpowered. Julia Stoliarenko, who Santos overpowered. So I'm taking her here with the full ability that Santos is getting old and has definitely looked a little physically reduced in recent times. But she still has a decent feel for countering. She still has a technically sound striking game. And she still is a hoss in the clinch. So I'm taking her. I'm not going to be surprised if she loses. But there's just always been something about Chasen that just doesn't quite sit right. There's just a little too much of... And I understand it, because like she's a 5'11" kind of like freak. Which, I mean that in the nicest way possible. But it's just hard to kind of develop properly when you have a couple of cheat codes in the bag against most of your training partners. Patchy Milks versus Jakob Wickles. Wickles is coming in from KSW. He's known predominantly for his grappling. He puts pace on. He's tough. He's pretty well-rounded. He's a good fighter. He's a good addition to this weight class. But you gotta go with Patchy Mix. Mix's debut against Mario Bautista was very bad. And it's not just that Mario Bautista looked good. It was Patchy Mix looking bad. I want to give credit to Bautista, but I want to make it very clear. Patchy Mix looked flat, looked bad, looked out of his element, frankly. But he is a very good grappler. He is a very dynamic wrestler. He attacks well in transition. He has power. He is huge. 5'11", 70 inches. We're just talking about Macy Jason. Enter Patchy Mix. But yeah, I do have to go with him. This is a significant step down. And if he loses, oh boy, those Bellator signings are going to look... they're going to be looking pretty bad because Patricio Pitbull is not going to hold up just because of age. And the hope is really on Patchy Mix, and like Johnny Eblam and company are like praying he does well so that they maybe get a shot to do good things in the UFC later on. But yeah, I got to go with Mix. I'm going to go by submission, and he is a minus 310 to minus 333 favorite against plus 240 to plus 260 on Wickless. Punahele Soriano versus Nikolai Veretennikov and Ramiz Brahima and Austin Vanderford. I'm going to talk about these fights kind of together because they're in the same division, 170. And I really wish there was a different combination here. I wish we had Vanderford versus Soriano because that'd be an interesting fight, and Brahima versus Veretennikov because that would be a more interesting fight, because as it stands, these are just both very, very easy calls. Soriano, Vanderford. There you go. Soriano and Vanderford have a similar advantage in both of these. They are both the better wrestler in these respective fights. They're also probably the better athlete in these respective fights. Soriano also hits hard, so there's a possibility of a TKO there. I don't think there's quite that with Vanderford. And Brahima and Veretennikov are both very flawed fighters. Veretennikov's problem is that, realistically, similar to my critique of Macy Jason, and actually worse because Veretennikov has really never developed any skills and he's not even that big, but he's just big. And his entire regional success was based on being big. He had a surprisingly competitive fight with Michael Morales on the Contender Series, which made me think, you know what, maybe there's something to this guy. I think realistically the answer was far more that it was just a sign of Morales's potential, but also rawness, and the fact that his only win in the UFC is over Francisco Prado, who is a very undersized welterweight, thus making it very clear that he requires a lot of size to win his fights, is kind of a problem. Soriano is not a big guy. He's 5'11", 72.5-inch reach, so he's shorter and less reach than Veretennikov, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually smaller, but he fought at 185 with like great success using a very physical style. Like, it's very clear that he is stronger than his size would lead you to believe. He's going to get the takedowns. He's going to hit hard. He should get dominant positions on the ground. And Veretennikov has had issues with the wrestling of Vanderford and even like Francisco Prado. That is not good. That is a problem. So, decision for Soriano, he's minus 300 to minus 333, plus 235 to plus 265 on Veretennikov. And I'm taking Vanderford just to be basically slightly a better version of Brahima all around, because Brahima is pretty reliant on the top grappling, and Vanderford is probably the better wrestler of the two, probably the better athlete of the two, should be able to get it down, and probably is the more technically clean striker of the two. Brahima's wins are over guys who just are not really UFC caliber when it comes down to it. Like, his biggest win is Mickey Gall, and that's not good. It's Mickey Gall, Billy Ray Goff, Michael Gilmore, and Sasha Platnikov. I believe outside of Goff, all of those guys are no longer with the UFC. And then his losses are to Themba Gorimbo, Court McGee, Max Griffin. It's just anyone who can put together a decent wrestling game against him would probably win. Like Themba Gorimbo threw him around and kind of ragdolled him. So I have to go with Vanderford. I'm going to say decision because Brahima is still pretty durable, but a finish would be not impossible. Vanderford is a minus 300 to minus 333 favorite. Hey, same betting odds, basically. Plus 235 to plus 260 on Brahima. So, yeah, I think this would be way better if Soriano is fighting Vanderford. And it would make more sense. I have no idea why we're having Soriano versus, Veretennikov. That doesn't make any sense. Soriano's actually, making noise at welterweight. He's beaten Uros Medic, Miguel Baeza since coming down to the weight class fairly dominantly in both cases. And for some reason, it's give him Veretennikov. That's a step down. I don't understand it. And especially when, clearly, you have Vanderford right there. And the opener is going to be Veronica Hardy versus Brogan Walker. This is a massive favorite. Hardy's the second largest favorite on the card, minus 649 to minus 800 to plus 440 to plus 550 on Brogan Walker. I think that's a little bit steep, but outside of a random win over Miranda Maverick, it just doesn't seem like Walker is really UFC caliber. She is not especially big, not especially athletic for the flyweight division. She had problems in the clinch and wrestling with Juliana Miller, who Hardy pretty soundly out-wrestled and beat down. So there you go. Hardy scrambles well. She's the more creative striker, the more technical striker. I don't really even know what a Walker win necessarily looks like. Historically, Hardy's losses to fighters like Walker largely come down to the fact that she spent a lot of her career at 135 being very, very undersized and fighting the likes of Bia Malecki and even like Ashley Evans Smith, that kind of thing. Like, otherwise, it's like, she's beaten Jamie Lynn Horth, who is very similar to Brogan Walker. She's beaten JJ Aldridge, who's very similar to Brogan Walker. She's beaten Juliana Miller, who beat Brogan Walker. She's beaten Polyana Viana, who is not very all that similar, but like kind of like a similar physical playing field to Brogan Walker, probably even better. So, yeah, I gotta place it very, very solidly in the camp of Veronica Hardy, even though I do think the odds makers and the betting public have gotten a little bit carried away. So those are the picks. Those are the breakdowns. I hope you enjoy the fight card. It's not a bad one. Like I said, it's missing like one solid main card opener and one solid feature prelim to be very good. In fact, honestly, it's not even missing that prelim. Again, if you got a better fight to put in the place of Pyfer and Abus and made that the feature prelim, that could possibly work. Or even, again, promoting Basharat versus Gutierrez, or even Shabazian versus Muniz into that spot. I just think that as excited as I am for Atiba Gauthier, we're just giving him fresh meat in the form of vines to tenderize. So as a future prelim, it's a little... But yeah, it's a good card. Like I said, there are some changes I would make. Give me Soriano versus Vanderfort. Put Veretennikov with Brahima. And I think that probably would actually amplify the card quite a bit. But it's matchmaking that otherwise makes a lot of sense. 2 title fights. Procházka versus Rountree should be very, very fun. I am looking forward to Shabazian versus Muniz, even though I am incredibly uneasy about it. Like I say, just fight. Santos versus Jusang Yu should be really, really fun, even though, again, 2 fighters that I have more questions than faith in, but fun fight. Patchy Mix versus Jakob Wickles should be pretty fun as well. And let's get that done. Anyways, down below you will find the social media stuff, the video gaming stuff, and my Discord server where you can enjoy the Fight Simulator, as well as the Fight Masters Prediction League. And good luck to Dalton, who is currently the leader in that, coming into UFC 320 action. Which is surprising. Go Cuttlefish. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Have a good one. Join us over there, and I will see you. Well, you will hear me after the fights.